So my name is Victor Otieno. For those who don't know me, I'm the managing director of VIFA Consult, a consultancy and research firm that focuses on startup and SMEs in Kenya. Our major role is to, try to use data as an avenue for, giving what we call the entrepreneurship support organizations data that would probably inform the kind of interventions that they do with SMEs. Basically, to be able to, what we try to do is to paint a picture of the SME topography in a manner that the different stakeholders can be able to tweak their interventions and their programs to ensure that they are as effective as possible. So we've done this for the last close to a decade, and basically what we do on a periodic basis is to do what we call rapid studies or rapid surveys in succession. And we use these studies or this data to be able to, give a glimpse of what is happening in the MSME space. So as you are well aware, SMEs are literally the backbone of the economy. Yet the paradox is very little is known about them. So, and a good example would be that the last major data collection that was done in Kenya around MSMEs was in 2016, and it's that data that is currently being used up to date. Of course, so many things have changed between 2016 to 2021. We've had elections, we've had drought, we've had COVID, etc. Yet different players are still making or doing interventions towards the SME space. So the question is, without data, what kind of interventions or how effective are the interventions that the different players are doing on SMEs? How impactful are they, or how effective is the interventions that they are doing? So one of the roles, major roles that we play in the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Kenya is providing data sets for different aspects of SME, just to enable the different stakeholders make better decisions. The last study we did was around MSMEs insurance. You can look up that particular study on our website. So basically, around insurance is a highly regulated sector. If you look at the penetration is not as high; it's less than 3%. Yet SMEs, we have around 7.4 million SMEs. 26. This is rolling back in 2016. Who are not covered within insurance product, or even if they're covered, it's still very narrow in terms of product. Yeah, so that study, of course, we partnered with different players, IRA, etc., and just to see, just be able to map out the behavior in terms of risk of SMEs, so that this can then inform either startups or other companies that want to develop products around the space, for them to be able to effectively have an impactful or relevant product. So today we are going to, I think for the last 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, we've been doing this survey around women in business. And I think it's one of those, as I was mentioning before the start of this meeting, is one of those areas or topics that we found to be quite interesting, and there was a lot of positive reception towards this particular study. So of course we didn't imagine that we'll get this kind of feedback from different quarters. So the study.
Chai tu peke yake.
Yeah, so maybe you can for those who have not muted, maybe you can mute so that you don't interfere with the presentation. So the studies around doing business in Kenya, reflection of women SMEs in 2021. So this is our second survey or study focusing on women. Our earlier study we did in 2019. And the whole idea is to be able to look at the specific facet of SMEs, of women-led entrepreneurs, just to find out, again, just to be able to map out through an empathy map what is going on in that particular space. So there is a lot of conversation around, SMEs being the backbone of the economy, but SME is such a wide spectrum that we need to really unpack the word SME. So of course, SMEs can be unpacked based on national data in terms of size, in terms of turnover, in terms of number of people employed. SMEs can also be classified, can also be unpacked based on sectors, just to be able to understand that. In this particular instance, we are looking at SMEs in terms of gender. So we know the importance and increasing important role of SMEs. So we just wanted to highlight that and find out what is happening in that space and have meaningful conversations around the same. So for this particular study, we partnered with Kayana as well as the SME Founders Association. Both of them have a high leaning or gravitation towards women-led businesses. So, of course, the study methodology, the way we structured the survey is we did both online and telephone interviews where we reached out to different women-led SMEs. For this particular study, we had, as of Friday last week, we had, I think, 123 people who successfully filled the survey. And of course, the design of the sample was, trying to ensure that we have major counties. Of course, we couldn't reach to all 47 counties, but we were able to reach out to some of the counties that have been enumerated on your screen. So at least that was very purposeful, so that we ensure that we have as many counties as possible. Then we did random survey within each county. So we were not really choosing within counties. So we just did a broadcast of the toolkit towards the different counties and different women-led businesses who are filling as we move on. So that's that in terms of the design of the tool. Of course, we know women-led businesses or women entrepreneurs, or the role of women in in the economy has traditionally been has not been highlighted as such. But we know that women play a critical role both at both social and economic perspective of our economy and the global society at large. There are, of course, unwritten rules that surround women in business or even women in society. In the sense that there is what is defined albeit unofficially, or is in terms of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable behavior for women in business. And of course, there are unique challenges that women face, especially those who are in business. And based on these unique challenges, it impedes them from really participating or contributing fully to socioeconomic development, for instance, in Kenya. But we know, based on data, that women in business, whether formally or informally, has a huge contribution to socioeconomic development of any given country. So it's based on that we decided to focus on SME but with the focus on women in business, just to be able to have an understanding of the space in terms of the profile of this kind of businesses, what challenges do they face, what motivates them, and use this data, of course, to have conversations such as this. So that probably we can catalyze a broader conversation around policy. So even as policy organs and legislative organs go about their work is around SMEs, we wanted to give them extra arsenal or extra data that they can use even as we formulate SME policy and legislation across the country. So if possibly, if they're unique enough and if they're significant enough, then probably it can roll over towards policy. So if you notice with all our studies are not academic focused. They are rapid surveys or studies that are meant to catalyze continual conversation. Hence the frequency of us churning different reports. So we churn at least maybe 3 to 4 studies in a month. And the idea is to catalyze policy and legislative conversations. The idea is not to complicate research and put it in a shelf for it to gather dust, but to have conversations. So one of the things that you notice with our studies is they're very easy to understand, they're very easy to use, even for Mama Wanjiko, Mama Otieno, whichever you would call. So as soon as they look at the study, they can be able to understand easily what is happening, and it can spark conversation within the space they are in. whether it's in mainstream media, whether in social media, whether it's in the chama groups. These conversations can start to happen, and at least they can have a reference in terms of data. So we asked several questions that we thought were pertinent. So number one was inspiration for starting business, again focusing on women, just to understand the behavior. And even as we move on, maybe you can chime in and give your perspective of what you see based on the results that we present. So number one in terms of inspiration was earn a living, and number two was passion, extra income, market gap, inability to secure formal employment, as well as. So of course this is an indicator of something. So as you can see, the top three inspiration for women joining business is to earn a living, passion, and extra income. So the extra income for me stands out, for instance, because that indicates that this is someone either who's employed full-time and is engaged in a side hustle of sorts. So of course that's my thought, that's my hypothesis for that. And the idea for us really is to look at the results and try to hypothesize the reason as to why these things are happening, with the goal of maybe having some broader conversation spin out of that. So you can note that, and probably I can open it up. Once I'm done, I can open it up for comments and questions around the different results that are coming out. So the second area was in terms of what we got from the study is sector distribution. So basically, in this instance, what we were asking the women-led entrepreneurs is, which sectors are you in? So based on that, what we did is we aggregated the most popular sectors that were chosen. So the first sector that stood out was hospitality, followed by agriculture, wholesale, retail, business support, then manufacturing. Especially what stands out is agriculture and manufacturing, because again, these are areas, or even real estate and construction, these are areas that are considered to be male dominated. So you can see that agriculture and as well as manufacturing is very popular among women. And I think, Wambua, this is something that might be of interest to you, just to see what within manufacturing, what kind of subsectors are represented. Although at this point we were not asking that kind of question, but it is interesting to note that. And even as we look at these sectors, the question that you ask yourself is, given that we've gone through COVID, what happened? What was the impact of COVID to women business in the different sectors, especially for wholesale and hospitality, which we know was highly affected. So that was very interesting. In terms of turnover, this of course mirrors what is already there in terms of data. If you look at KNBS data, for instance, we have over 90% of MSMEs falling within the micro and small. So this is SMEs with turnovers of less than 500,000. So in this instance, we are seeing a big chunk coming between 1 to 500,000, which is 58%. So a lot of MSMEs, and even women-led MSMEs, a majority of them are micro, in the sense that they have turnovers of less than 500,000, which of course is it validates what already is there in terms of national statistics. The other question that we asked was around source of financing, because remember, access to finance is one of those major issues that we face as a country as well as a continent. So again, just finding out the kind of the mix of income that women-led businesses go through. So of course, again, if you look at data that we've done, research that we've done, as well as KNBS data and different organization, FSD, etc., we see that personal saving is still number one in terms of source of financing, followed by business profit, chamas, family, and friends. Again, this is because of course the other major sources of income has some limitation. Either, for example, banks, due to the large informality of businesses in Kenya. So business profit savings, chama groups, family, etc. is good, but it impedes significant growth, in the sense that you can't be able to access finance that can be able to unlock value. So probably you can't be able to buy a machine. Yes, you can be able to finance, your, buying of stock, buying of inventory, but maybe funds enough to be able to allow you to invest in technology assets that can be able to unlock significant value, they still cannot be able to access. Hence, the turnover distribution majority sticking to less than 500,000, because yes, they're accessing finance, but the finance is too little for them to really reinvest and really scale and access maybe wider market. Probably even as I finish, I would probably give Rose a chance just to talk about accessing ESC market, accessing the continental market through FTA or the ESC community, to see what are the opportunities that are there. So, because right now what we can see is the sizes are small in terms of businesses, and the kind of financing that women-led businesses is still gravitates towards the 3Fs: family, friends, and fools. Although fools can't be there. So, but also we are seeing an increasing role of mobile credit towards financial inclusion of SMEs. Again, just around access to finance, we also wanted to get a perception of how easy or how hard it is for women-led SMEs to access credit. As you can see, 47 plus 26 are saying it's either hard or very hard. So it just reinforces the idea that there are some challenges when it comes to generally SMEs accessing finance. And I think government is really putting efforts towards that through maybe, for example, the credit guarantee scheme, which was launched recently, and other avenues. The government is really trying to ensure, as well as different stakeholders are trying to ensure that access to credit is made easy. So the other question that we asked was around a support network. Again, businesses or SMEs don't work in isolation. They work in an ecosystem of sorts. And we've seen this based on our previous studies, and of course, even the different stakeholders that are here. I think maybe Wambua, who is in the informal sector, can be able to maybe articulate that better, in the sense that there is a uniqueness of Kenyan businesses to aggregate around chama groups. So we wanted to just get a feel of the broad spectrum of networks that support SMEs. So as you can see, moving clockwise on this is family and friends is the first network that a lot of women-led businesses are. And this, of course, cuts across SMEs. We followed by chama. What was interesting is the mention of internet. So there is an increasing role of looking for data, looking for information on the internet as a way of supporting your business. We have SME associations, just like Kayana, SME Founders Association, ASEC, etc. So there is an increasing role of association towards supporting MSMEs. And of course, this association play a multi role in the sense that there is a lot of capacity building going on in there. There's a lot of mentorship. There's a lot of access to finance, etc. So there's an increasing role of MSME associations. We have professional associations that maybe women-led businesses are in. This maybe could be you in a specific industry. Maybe, for example, you're in in medical, so in the medical field, so you probably subscribe to a medical professional body. You're in insurance, etc. There's also table banking, again, for a lot of women-led SMEs. There's professional advisors, and as well as think tanks. So this is the broad spectrum in terms of support organizations that support women-led businesses. And again, we can have conversations around what role do these different platforms play in supporting businesses, whether are they optimal in terms of support, or is there something that needs to be done to improve? What we've seen again from government point of view is there is a significant representation of informal sector MSMEs or Juakali through the MSME Act 2012, which of course where we have the Kenya Federation of Juakali Association, etc. But there's still a gap around medium-sized, small to medium-sized formal MSMEs. So again, can we be able to have conversations in terms of how can we be able to aggregate these different players, especially SME associations, to for them to be able to play a more significant role at a national level. In terms of growth strategy for the past 1 year, again, it's just to be able to get an in-depth understanding. So the first strategy is around referral from satisfied clients, walk-in customers, third-party e-commerce platforms such as Jumia, etc. We have tenders, we have referral from friends, social media, and personal networks. So as you can see, based on this, and maybe Rose, maybe you can maybe touch, you can just give a comment around this, is the growth strategy that the top growth strategy that have been referred here might not be sufficient for women-led businesses to really scale. So yes, referral is good and is very strong, both from clients and friends. Walk-in customers is also good, but is it significant enough for such businesses to be able to access a wider market, both nationally, at the region, as well as the continent? And what more can we do to ensure that the growth strategies that SMEs and women-led businesses can put in place to ensure that they're able to access a wider market? So this basically has a correlation with the size. So if, for example, you have a majority of SMEs being less than 500,000, it means that maybe they don't have capacity in terms of really focusing on their growth strategy and them being able to access a wider market. So this presents, it's good, we know, but this presents a challenge in terms of how can we be able to really help our women-led businesses to scale. Major challenges faced. Again, MSMEs have a lot of challenges that they face, and this is well documented, but we would just wanted to take a deep dive and look at the special challenges that women-led SMEs face. So number one, of course, which cuts across, is access to finance. Number two, we have access to markets. As you've seen, the growth strategy that women-led SMEs already gives you an indication that there is a challenge in terms of access to market. Maybe it could be that they lack the information, or they can't access information, or it could be that they don't have the resources to do proper market intelligence. So that's of course now is correlated to the challenge. We have something that is unique to women-led businesses, is harassment by government authorities, especially for women in wholesale retail who operate in different markets. So there was that being highlighted as a major challenge, which of course goes hand in hand with gender-based discrimination at whatever level. It could be nascent, it could be salient, or it could be something that is very apparent, but that was something that was mentioned. Use of social media, again, as much as we have some businesses, selling through third-party e-commerce platforms, largely they still a huge challenge in terms of harnessing the power of social media for business. So that is a challenge that was mentioned. We have lack of business management skills, and again, of course, this is continues to be addressed by different players, both banking players as well as different other entrepreneurship support organizations. So those are not all, but some of the challenges that were highlighted. And we all know that COVID had a negative impact on MSMEs, and women-led SMEs were not left out. Again, we wanted to find out, and just to draw parallels and draw correlations, highest education. So we can see basically that, we have even women-led businesses with people who have master's degrees. So it is telling in terms of the labor market and maybe the challenge of jobs in Kenya. So as you can see, there's a lot of, we have highly educated women engaging in business, either as a side business or a full-time business. And we can see that, a majority are highly educated, which means that, there is potential for these businesses to really scale, knowing that we have people who have, an expanded horizon in terms of, academics, as well as, aptitude to be able to, really scale their business. We had 2% having masters, not masters, but doctoral or PhD, which was very interesting. Although we couldn't really find out the kind of sectors they've invested in, but that was very interesting. Again, what we wanted for this particular question is to find out how women spend their money, because the uniqueness of women-led businesses is it should be unique or different from, you know, a male-led kind of business, in the sense of how funds are utilized post or after earning the funds from the business. So of course, this follows priority. So a majority was saying they would reinvest back in the business. Then you would have food and accommodation for family, children educational, personal spending, supporting elderly parents, as well as social costs. So you can see that, and this of course can be interpreted in terms of impact to society. Other than having a business, having an SME or enterprise, and employing different and contribute towards both socioeconomic development, there's an aspect that is unique to women-led business in terms of how they spend their money. So as you can see, there's a social impact of women-led businesses, in the sense that the money that they earn has a knockdown effect or a ripple effect towards the larger society in terms of the way they spend. So you can see supporting elderly parents, social cause, educating both their children as well as other children. So that makes women business to be unique, and it could be a case for further support and further targeted policy towards supporting women-led businesses. So we asked, last but not least, what are the future plans of these businesses? So again, if you go clockwise, we have first being new product development, set up a new and different business, and this is a reaction towards maybe systemic shocks, in the sense that women-led businesses are trying, or women entrepreneurs are trying to diversify to other businesses as a way of coping with COVID. That is my interpretation of that regulation, in the sense that the businesses that, especially for hospitality, wholesale retail, has had a very huge impact on SMEs. So we are seeing people trying to set up different businesses that are more resilient. Maybe it could be agriculture, it could be transport and logistic, etc. So it's just a way of coping. Partner with investors, especially if you want to grow and scale. We have geographical expansion. Again, this could be within the country, could be within the region, as well as within the continent. So is that desire for a lot of women-led enterprises to really scale their business and have national and regional as well as continental brands. We have improved internal structures, which of course is we basically call internal control systems. So because of the informality has its own disadvantage, in the sense that business cannot grow, in the sense that you can't be able to access finance because of the informal nature. We have people who want to sell business, and some want to close in totality. So of course, we are starting from a very positive and going towards a negative perspective, in the sense some people sell or either close. And of course, this is well supported by Ken-based data, in the sense that we have in Kenya, we have a very high mortality rate of around, I think, 75% within 3 years. So, and of course, there is explanations around why this is so, in the sense that number one is informality, number two is weak business models. We know that wholesale retail is not as sustainable and is susceptible to external shocks. So there is an aspect of closing businesses, but it's not unique to Kenya. And lastly, what we asked was around business family balance, just to figure out, how hard or how easy it is for women-led entrepreneurs or women-led businesses or entrepreneurs to balance between family and business. Remember, in the Kenyan culture, there is still an unwritten expectation that women should still hold the house or the home. So we just wanted to ask and hear from the horse's mouth, what are how easy is it for you to manage family and business? And as you can see, 61% were saying, you know, it's manageable. And I don't know if it's manageable in the sense that they don't have any other option, or is it that they're manageable because they feel it's truly manageable. So of course, this is the debate for that is out there, and probably it's you know, the women entrepreneurs who can be able to explain maybe in a qualitative sense what that exactly means. So basically, that's that in terms of the survey. We thought maybe before we could you know, launch it, just to be able to you know, share it with the different practitioners, different players, for your input, so that you know, we can be able to enrich the report by the time we launch it, probably in the course of this week. Thank you very much. Maybe I would open it up for comments. Maybe I know I'd already talked to Frida, I talked to Rose, and I talked to Pat. In terms of just you know, given that you have a very significant role in terms of, you know, women-led enterprises, and especially around maybe you can talk about you know, the opportunities that are there for women-led businesses in both FTA as well as the ESC community. Maybe we can start with Pat, then we can go to Frida, then maybe we can do Rose, then we can open it up for the rest. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Victor. I was really looking forward to your thoughts on this rapid survey. You've also educated me on what a rapid survey actually is, which is really awesome. I have been taking some notes. I was curious to see if there was anything that would surprise me that would be an outcome. And probably as a woman, no, the answer would be no. So yeah, that is interesting. So a few comments is around the issue of, if we start with the turnover or stroke scaling of the businesses, and you know, your thoughts and comments around you know, the turnover of the businesses. I think majority of them were within 100 to 500, which is really micro in my thoughts. I mean, as Kayana, who we're hoping to raise businesses to turn over, I mean, to employ at least five employees. So we're looking at them earning at more closer to the $100,000 mark. I think we really have quite a bit of work to do. And then that it begs the thought then that if this demographic, so this sampling, had such highly educated individuals responding, and yet there is still a challenge. The first challenge was they were still talking about access to finance and access to market. You know, where is the education required, you know, in order to get these businesses moving to the next level, you know? And then we start thinking about the reasons why the businesses were started. If they were started out of looking for additional funds or maybe retrenchment, then is it that the businesses are not addressing a scalable need, you know? And, you know, we think through that as we take our women through the accelerator programs. Maybe these are some of the questions we need to be asking them. And if they do not want to scale, because many women would be fine as long as they're making an additional, you know, 1 million shillings a month. This is great. You know, it can go towards these other social impacts, as you call them, to the children's education and to nurturing my parents. I mean, then it's fine. So they may not be that desire to remove them from the home environment, and hence are they then deliberately keeping their businesses micro. So it was, I mean, I can see the studies going even further and asking even further questions around that. And at Kayana, we actually do believe that women do business different because we are nurturers. And I think this has already proven that. I know you're calling it social impact, but it's because we are nurturers. That's why we're looking out for our society and the needs of society. So is this the new direction as we get more and more female entrepreneurs running businesses? We see them doing more social impact work, you know, naturally, and, you know, being involved in areas where, you know, where that impact is greater. And maybe that's where the satisfaction comes more than just, you know, the turnover and the numbers. Maybe the satisfaction is on what social impact does my business have? And maybe that will drive what we can call maybe, what can you call it? the desire to grow, because the more I grow my business, the more impact that I have. So maybe there'll be a lot of more aggression in terms of scale, and maybe that's what will attract these financial institutions that want to give these women, money. So yeah, it was. I mean, I think it was really. It's interesting. A lot of questions to ask, and it'll be interesting as we try and do more of these kind of studies, or what information that will come out from it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pat. I think one of the things that is not unique to this study is the turnover distribution. So if you are to compare this to KNBS data, we see that over 90% of business of MSMEs, of the 7.4 million SMEs in Kenya, are micro. So the challenge that we have in Kenya is the distribution in terms of size is still very small. And what we call medium-sized enterprises is a very narrow, or the number is very small. So the challenge we have either is to help MSMEs to formalize and help them scale from being small, from being micro to being small to being medium-sized enterprises. And I think that's where maybe, for example, an accelerator such as yourself have a challenge in. And one of the things that even us, what we've tried to advocate is for us to educate our entrepreneurs to think different in terms of business models and move away from what we call wholesale retail to more sustainable businesses that have sustainable business models. So in Kenya, for example, top sectors in Kenya are wholesale retail, food accommodation, as well as motor vehicle and motorcycle repair. So even when COVID hit, because wholesale was a big part of Kenyan businesses, that's why SMEs struggled vis-a-vis manufacturing, which maybe had some bit of resilience. So it's a systemic challenge that we have, and we hope that different players such as yourself can be able to really change the narrative.
Yeah, I have to. Yeah, I agree with you. In fact, there was just one other note that I was going to comment. It came to home-based businesses, which is Marianne, do you mind muting your? We can actually hear you very well, Marianne. Maybe if you can mute. Okay. So what we're saying is that around home-based businesses, which tend to be where we're doing micro and small manufacturing or of products, is actually at the moment 80% women-owned. And I wondered when I thought about, when you mentioned the family balance, maybe it's actually a good thing because they're working from home and therefore are able to, handle the issues at home, the home issues. And we know even when we're working with regulators, more and more regulators are beginning to say that, yeah, actually there's something about being able to allow women or allow micro and small businesses to actually manufacture from their homes, as is done in the US. And we may see businesses begin to grow that way. So it's, I think a lot of points and things to ponder for us who are aggregators of these small and micro businesses. Thank you.
Frida?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Victor. I've always said you're a genius when it comes to these things, and thank you so much because it was a real pleasure partnering with you and seeing what you have come up with. It's a really good confirmation for us that we are on track for what the stuff that we have been doing at SME Founders Association, because when we talk about the kinds of businesses women are starting and the access to market situation, for us, we have done the studies we have done internally and with our knowledge partners have made us look for a solution that will help them look at their whole, what we call the personal entrepreneurial competencies. And these personal entrepreneurial competencies are based on David McClelland's research on the behavior of successful entrepreneurs globally. What we discovered is that I'm a woman. I've been in business for over 20 years. I don't go to business because I don't think of myself as a woman in business. I just think of myself as a founder in business. And that just changed the whole situation. So one of the things that we found out, the underlying problem is the mindset of the entrepreneur, the mindset of the woman in business. How are you coming to business? And you'll see that that has a that has an effect on some of the information that you're having here. So for me, it's a great confirmation because we have done studies with our knowledge partners, and our knowledge partners are Harvard, Babson, and Strathmore, which has caused us to, to focus on the business owner. And the business owner could be a man or a woman, but with a woman, of course, like you said earlier, there are different things that come to play when it's a woman. You have the home, you have the family, you have to protect all that. And then even the way our culture and society, positions the woman, but also the way the woman positions herself is very critical to her success. So I'm very grateful for this data because it confirms and it affirms a lot of what is going on in the ecosystem. The other thing when it comes to what I really like about this data is that it's going to help us as aggregators to move away from silos. What we have done as SME Founders Association is when it comes to mentorship, yes, we have 15 resident mentors, but we also have tech mentors, we have peer mentors, the business owners themselves, because that helps them to almost, I want to say, to stick their hands to the gun so that they stay with it. And then, so the big thing is, this is an affirmation that we need to look more at how the person is thinking, what is the literacy they have. I had Pat ask a very interesting question. They are educated, so why is it that the education is not, translating into success in business? Because the education we have is for white collar jobs. Business is not a white collar job. Business is a startup job. Most of them are coming from corporate, and the way you run a corporate, you cannot run a small business that way. That's why we found that the PECs, starting off the entrepreneur, understanding what their PECs is extremely critical. And then we have different partners because we realize that we cannot be the best in everything, but there are already people who are good at other things, and we're always trying to pull other people in so that we can. First, we have 15 resident partners, 15 resident experts. We call them technical SME experts. They're SMEs, so they understand what the SME is going through. They understand exactly, like a sales expert. She has an institute for selling, and she's an international school of training for salespeople across the world. So she understands from the macro to the micro what needs to be done. So this data is confirming that silos will not work if you're really here to support the entrepreneur. It's going to help us know what is our strengths and how can we come together and help more women, not just in Kenya, but across Africa, because now we can go across borders because of AFTA. So I'm very grateful to have participated in this with you. And one other thing that I wanted to highlight here is COVID. For us as an organization, COVID highlighted that our foundations were faulty. COVID really highlighted that COVID was not the problem. The problem, it was, again, our mindset, how we are starting our businesses, and our management, how we are running our businesses. How you start a business will determine how you run the business. So this mindset thing is really critical, and I hope that this is what was the rapid fast fire survey. I hope we can dig in deeper and find out what are the mindsets based also on this PEC research by McClelland, so that we get the right and proper interventions out there for women. So the COVID thing proves to us that our foundations were faulty. We do not have scenario planning for situations when there's risk. COVID was this year. Next year, it is elections. And every time there's elections, who are the hardest hit? SMEs. So for us, as I wind up, for us, the big thing is compliance. And when we talk about compliance, Victor, we are not looking at compliance with the government, because again, the mindset comes in when it comes to compliance. Women are afraid of filling documents. Women are afraid of dealing with the government. Again, mindset. But if you go in as a business owner, there are appropriate, associations that you can work with. We have partnerships with different associations to help you in the role that you're going to play in your business. But we find that a lot of times they just feel like when we had, I'll give you a very, we had one of our financial partners giving unsecured loans of up to 2 million. The list of requirements was 8 pieces of documents. And many women shied away just by looking at that document. So we had to sit with them and help them curate those documents. So for women, my biggest thing is our mindset, all right? We need to use this information to manage our mindset, and then our management, not looking at our papers. So the compliance starts with the mind. Who are the appropriate people that we need to connect with so that we get the business done? And our management, for us, there are 3 core areas, the critical areas that we focus on, because we're looking at these numbers. I like the screen that the slide that you have on the screen right now. If we are really going to be the solution for our countries, we cannot wait for the government. If we have to create businesses that are going to support the creation of work, and work is being able to pay myself as an entrepreneur, being able to pay others, we have to have interventions that will ensure that the businesses we have, before we get out of the door, there are markets for them. And I like that you point on social impact, because we have discovered that the businesses that are going to make sense are the businesses that are going to have social impact, because there's markets for those. But when we hear social impact, we tend to think there's no revenue there or there's no profit there. No. A social enterprise needs to have a profit. It's just not, it's not an NGO, and it's going to provide the solutions that we need. And if they're providing the solutions that we need, we're going to get paid for them. So I really love this conversation. I can go on and on and on. Thank you for affirming that we are on track. Thank you for, bringing other partners on board. Good to see you here, Kayana and Moms in Business, because for this thing to, if we are out to support Kenya and indeed the African woman, no single organization is going to be able to do it. And this data is very good to inform us on how to move forward. Thank you very much, Victor.
Thank you very much, Frida. I would simply want to welcome Rose. Just to give us perspective in terms of markets and the opportunities that are there within the region and within the FTA. Karibu sana, Rose.
Thank you so much, Victor. And sorry, I have to leave for a meeting at 10, and that's why I inboxed you to say that maybe I should just. I think I wished I had more time to discuss with you, because the data that you've presented is very exciting. I'm somebody who is in the SME space in government. We do trade facilitation. I work for a government agency called Kentrade, which facilitates trade. So we are looking at seeing how SMEs can be able to even go into international trade, because most SMEs are localized. They do domestic trade. They are very afraid of venturing into international trade. But most importantly, I'm an independent consultant, and I work closely with ITC, International Trade Center, and the International Trade Center is really focused ensuring the growth of SMEs, and it has identified the issue of finances, it has identified the issue of lack of information, and it's also identified, I'm trying to remember the third one, finances, lack of information, and also skills, the skills gaps, and and SMEs themselves in terms of their enterprises, running their enterprises. So, but back to what is important, the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, as some of you may be aware, it is the biggest agreement, or the biggest FTA that has been concluded in the world, 54 African countries. And it would really be a big mistake if we were to leave behind women when it comes to this particular agreement. I'm even aware the Secretariat is now considering having a protocol on women, just understanding the disparities that are there between when women trade and when men trade. I just want to go back to what Frida has said. I was having a discussion yesterday with Carol of OWIT. OWIT is Organization of Women of International Trade, Women in International Trade. And one of the challenges, she said, that despite banks having these for women to be able to come and take loans at a very low rate, some of them have been provided by funders like MasterCard. But you find that the women will go to the bank, but they will still not be able to get these facilities. So there is that question mark really that needs to be answered. Women not able to get these particular facilities. And you've seen from the data presented, most of these women are learned, they have masters, they come from corporate world. So I think that is something that we want to look at very closely. Personally, me and Carol, we are looking at able to propose, a funding mechanism that is, favorable for women. And there's this FAWA project. I don't know if some of you have heard of FAWA, that is sponsored by Africa Development Bank, who are looking at funding women businesses, funding through the commercial banks. But we were saying that if the Africa Development Bank is going to give the money in the same way to the commercial banks, and the commercial banks are going to give the same conditions, then you will not have these women coming to get that money, because they know even if I go to the bank, I will not be able to get this money. So that question mark needs really to be answered. And we are submitting a bid for AFAWA to the Africa Development Bank on capacity building on the areas for financing, areas for capacity building for your business. And we hope you will listen to us that it's not just about giving money, but also finding out why when we give money to banks, women are not coming for this money. In fact, you're finding that now men are creating businesses and coming, and putting their wife there and then coming for this money. The women are not coming. Me working in government, I've also realized that 30% of procurement is set aside for women, persons with disabilities, and youth. But you'll find women are not coming for this. They are not coming for these tenders. In fact, it has become now something that, a man just goes, makes sure business, they must have a woman so that I can be able to take advantage of that particular, incentive that has been set aside for women and which is not supposed to be. So for me, I think time is too short for me. I wish I could be able to talk more, but I know that there are quite a number of opportunities when it comes to the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. There are also opportunities that ITC are going to provide for free online training. There are also workshops that are going to be carried out to build the capacity of these women to be able to trade within the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. And just under 90% of tariffs are going to be removed. So there will be incentive for you to be able to trade, if you have a commodity in Kenya, to be able to trade, with Nigeria. Initially, we would confine ourselves to EAC, to COMESA, because we have those agreements. So if you're a woman who is trading within EAC and already going into export, then you need to look at, because the agreement will now be able to provide you, with those reduced tariffs, those non-tariff barriers will be eliminated so that you can be able to take advantage. Also, in terms of the service sector, you'll be open to be able to set up your business in Nigeria, and if you're in the service sector. And some of these least developing countries have, industries that are still so young that, people can be able to go in there and assist them to be able to bring up these industries. So I think, Victor, we can have another session because I think I have so much knowledge to give and networks to be able to connect. And I'm very passionate about SMEs. So maybe we can continue this discussion as I move to my meeting. We can have a discussion on another day where I can be able to even give much more in terms of the space I'm working with the development partners and also the government is doing. And not to forget, one of the key pillars, or the government of Kenya has already come up with an implementation strategy for the CFTA. And one of the key pillars looks at empowering, SMEs to be able to, plug into this. And I want to read it. In terms of the implementation strategy, it says, supporting the integration of MSMEs into the regional value chains through production linkages and awareness creation. So you can already see SMEs in terms of the national implementation strategy of the CFTA. SMEs are there. So, allow me to end there. I'm being called for my meeting. I think we can be able to talk later.
Thank you very much, Rose. I'm sure we would be able to create another time, another platform for us to have this conversation. But thank you very much for your input. If you could be able to share that implementation strategy for the Kenyan, whatever, it would be awesome. So probably we can try to incorporate it into the final report. Okay,
I will share. However, it's still a draft, and you're going to be called upon to validate it. So if you're a stakeholder organization like KEPSA and all that, if you belong to a private sector organization, you will be called upon to do the validation. No worries. No worries. Thank you very much, Rose. I can see, even as we bid Rose goodbye, have a nice day, Rose. I see Nyamai you've raised your hand. Wambua, karibu.
Yeah. Thank you, Victor. Victor, I don't know whether you are aware that yourself and I are the only men in this, and technically I'm the only man because you are the presenter. So we could do very little about you being a man or a woman. so my presentation. And I must, also thank all the beautiful ladies that are behind the sponsors, the organizations, Kayana and SME founders, and all the participants. So I do not want to say much. I must say that the data is very telling. I think I want to agree with my previous speakers that it's very, I mean, interesting actually that, for example, the area of the turnovers, yeah, those are very micro, those are very small, I mean, I think small numbers, if you like, for lack of a better word. And the other point that you have validated is that then the small numbers actually speak to the fact that most of the SMEs are in the informal sector, so that comes up. They are micro for that matter. They are micro in size, and the other issues that I really agree with is the issue of the source of funding, source of finance. Yeah, our ladies have beaten us as men. We must give it to them in terms of savings. So they mobilize their personal savings, then they keep it very tight, stuck somewhere, even if it's under the mattress. And they're also good in chamas. So it validates the experience that is out there in the market, and I want to agree with it. Yeah, and I would be very interesting. I mean, it would be very interesting for me to look at the manufacturing sector and the women that are in the manufacturing space. Yeah, and you can see if the turnovers are the majority, or the numbers are saying between 100,000 and 500, and somebody's in the manufacturing, and manufacturing is actually very capital intensive. So you can see where, and then the capital you are looking for in terms of finance is coming from your own personal savings. So you may not be able to acquire equipment and, and really get what is required as a women in manufacturing space. So you can see that, that it is validating the gaps that that are out there. And I want to agree with all the speakers that this is a conversation we may want to pick and see whether we can do a further deep, we can deep dive, because these were more of rapid to elicit conversation and interest. And going forward, I think this is a conversation we can pick. Last but not least, yeah, is an issue that we raised earlier, especially in the Juakali sector, in the artisans, spectrum of the informal sector. We also have women in business in the Juakali sector and in the various industries. And I think for us, we also we have an agenda to promote, especially, for example, in textile. I don't know why textile is assumed, and especially textile in the small business sector, not textile in the bigger manufacturing sector. I think women.
I think we've lost him.
Sorry, I think I had muted. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. So thank you very much. I want to make those comments and say that we look forward to engage with ASEC and all their partners involved and see what linkages we can do in terms of technology and enabling the Juakali sector and players in the Juakali sector to tap into the innovations that are available out there in the market. With those few remarks, I'm also joining another meeting, and I want to thank you, Victor, and all the organizers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Wambua. One of the things that I've noted for you is, a deep dive to women in manufacturing within the informal sector. That's something that one of the things that we wanted out of this is also to identify problems or research problems or challenges that we can try to unpack. So women in manufacturing generally, just a deep dive around that, as well as women in the Juakali sector. That's something that maybe we can take up and see how we can be able to unpack that particular area. Thank you very much, Wambua. I don't know if there's anyone else who has a comment or a question. Then probably we can just wrap it up. Talitwala has raised her hand.
Victor?
Sorry for that.
Okay, she can go ahead. I was just going to say thank you very much for championing this, and we look forward to working with you. Any way that we can support this is going to be absolutely welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil. Kiesibure, Talitwala.
Thanks, Victor. It's actually just Subire.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, and I like the data that has come out. Sorry, I represent I'm operations at SME Founders Association. I'm wondering if we could do a deep dive into something Frida spoke about. She spoke about mindset. And then when Rose was speaking, it came back to mind, because there's an element of which we need to find out how to, the interlink. Let me give an example. We are currently running an accelerator program for food processors. And we, in the interview process, because we interviewed about maybe 50 businesses to get down to the numbers we wanted. And you find, yes, they're largely women. Yes, it's largely manufacturing. Yes, it's largely at home. But when you listen to the conversations, because in the sessions, there's a hesitance in the female psyche. There's a hesitance around growth. There's a hesitance around being able to go out there. And for me, that's important, because it doesn't matter how many people we want to scale up to what numbers. How do we, I think that we need to do a deeper interaction into, and this is going to sound crazy, but the cultural impact of that. You mentioned it in passing at the beginning, that it is wired around how we think as a people, how we perceive the women. And I'm a very strong believer that before we can emancipate the woman, okay, that's not a good word, but yeah, before we can emancipate the woman, we need to emancipate the man. So how do we then do something around that? Because until my brother, my father, my husband, my cousins, my male friends understand that I'm not here because I was given a heads up or a hand up. I am here because I'm not a woman in business. I'm a woman business owner. How do we then do that correlation? Because a lot of women may not be growing because they're told you need to be available for home, right? The second aspect is the impact of formal education on the mindset of entrepreneurship. They're not mutually exclusive, but they are counterintuitive. I went to university. I did a business. I have a business degree. We did entrepreneurship. When I came to the ground, qua ground vitu ni different sana, right? So then the question of highly educated women, where this is the annual turnover, this makes sense to me because I've grappled with it for 17 years. It's only when my mind flipped that the rules of engagement on the ground, a lot of the things we learn in school don't work. So how do we then integrate, and this is for further conversation, I guess, how do we integrate true entrepreneurship training into the education sector? Because I look at women around me, master's, PhD, the thinking is so linear, but entrepreneurship is very lateral. You find a challenge, this didn't work, let's try something else. But I have a model in my mind that needs to work. So I keep working very pedantically at that model. It's not working. And I don't have the capacity to broaden because I have ways of thinking. So I think those two things for me and for SFA would be interesting. Because we do have a lot of very educated women who are struggling with very simple things. If now, once you blow the mindset out of the window and you debunk, you position education as a tool to open the mind, but not to stick to linear models, I think that will be a game changer, especially for the women. Men are able to just move to the next. We are wired differently because of our nurturing nature, and we want to understand. So for me, those would be two very key things I'd like to see done. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. I think they're very important, and I think even the mindset, generally, I think the entrepreneurship mindset in Kenya is still that, entrepreneurship plays a second fiddle to formal employment. So of course that's the general perception and the general social orientation. So maybe a deep dive towards the broad spectrum of culture and the link to entrepreneurship, the incentives that are there, the bottlenecks that are there, is something that we can explore. And of course we can, I think this is just as a first for further collaboration and further conversation. So probably we can just be able to, package that in a manner that we can be able to put it out there for us to be able to get feedback and, be able to get a sense of what are the drivers around the area of perception, the area of, mindset, etc. So I think that's a very important topic you've raised, and I think probably we can just continue the conversation around the same. Yeah, so due to time, I don't know, and maybe one more, if not, then probably maybe I can just, express our appreciation for, helping us to put the survey out. As I said in my opening presentation, the survey really got a lot of interest, and from many quarters. We had, different emails from different people who were saying, we want to see the report, we want to see the outcome, we want to participate, we want to partner. And I think for me and for us, that's really what the whole exercise is all about. Is not to just do academic papers, academic research, is to be able to put out data or research or information that can be able to catalyze conversations and can have a link towards, a policy or an improvement of the environment, if at the very least, then information that can be able to help entrepreneurs. So I really want to thank you for, for the support that you gave us, even for the feedback that you've given us today. I think we are eternally grateful, and we hope and pray that, we can continue having these collaborations and we can continue to have these conversations. So after this, maybe in the next, before the end of the week, we are going to compile the report. Largely, it's going to be the same in terms of the output, but what we are going to add are the different nuggets of wisdom that was shared here. In terms of insight, we'll try to incorporate as much as possible to the final report. And of course, we are going to mention the different partners that were able to support us through this entire process. And I think we are very much open to having a conversation around research. Anytime you would want to reach out and you want us to tackle some certain areas, we are very much open to having those conversations. Thank you very much, and I know it's a Monday and it's Monday morning, so we really appreciate you taking time Monday morning to just sit with us and have this conversation. Asanteni sana and God bless.